All right, welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown podcast. It is Friday, December 10th, 2021. It is 12:43 p.m. as we record this. Had a little bit of scheduling conflicts last night that prevented us from being able to do our usual Thursday night schedule while we watch the game. So we put it off to today, both working from home. So we were able to fire up a little bit of a lunch hour episode to preview the Ravens heading to Cleveland to take on the pesky Brownies. My name is Jake Luke. I'm joined by Spencer Nathaniel Schultz. Quilted up there. How's it going, man?
Doing quite well. Excited to talk some ball and a lot of fun. Last night was the first primetime game I think this year that I haven't watched. It might be the first in like 2 years that I haven't watched. I think I've had a pretty obsessive streak of Monday night, Sunday night, Thursday night games I had watched consecutively, or at least caught most of. Last night I did not. Found it very entertaining to watch Ravens fans across Twitter start to, do their thing that they always do and be unable to watch a game that does not involve the Ravens and do their absolute best to tie it to the Ravens. A lot of how is this happening? How did the Ravens lose to the Steelers? Which the grand irony of is that they played the Vikings in Baltimore. The Vikings dominate them in the first half, and then the Ravens came back and won. They dominated the Steelers in the first half, especially defensive. Not dominated, but on the defensive side of the football, I'd say the Ravens dominated the Steelers on Sunday in the first half and really in the third quarter too. And then the Steelers came back in the fourth quarter and won it. So what happened in that game in the grand scheme of things as the game played out? The Steelers, old John Wayne Roethlisberger, who's just fucking lubed up those joints, those freaking shoulders and elbows and wrists. Everything's feeling loosey-goosey. He's scrambling for first downs on 4th and 4. And the old 6-shooter, man, this is just, I mean, I'm enjoying it so much. And I know that you are too. I know how mad it makes you, but I know at this point you can at least appreciate the comedic performance. But long story short, the two teams do the same things that they did to the Ravens. Exactly. And everyone's like, how is this happening? It's like, we watched both of these things already happen this year.
Well, it's funny to me, like it's almost like a meta dynamic where like they get mad at like watching that game. Like, how the fuck did we lose to this team? The Steelers suck. Vikings offense is so amazing. If the Ravens had Justin Jefferson, they wouldn't know how to use him. And there's so much to unpack with that. But first I would start by saying it's meta because they get mad. And then I get mad that they get mad. And like my contention is like, well, you guys should know better than to get mad. But then I'm like, why I should know better than to get mad at them getting mad? Because
exactly.
Like, it's the most obvious reaction of all time. It's just like how normal football fans are, unlike us, who are like in this kind of whirlwind or vortex of the media sphere, whatever you want to call it. So there's that. And yeah, it's just like some of the stuff, like some of the like, Rashad Bateman has 2 quiet weeks and then Pat Ricard gets more touches than him in a game. And it's like freaking out about, if they had Justin Jefferson, like they wouldn't know how to use him. It's like, all right, guys, well, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, like all these Dalvin Cook, all these weapons on the Vikings offense, and they're 5-7. Like, great. The Ravens are 8-4. I know that it's like, last Sunday was a tough one and all that. And it's tough to watch a team that you get beat by a team
that you beat
earlier in the season. Like, I get all that. It's difficult, but every game is different. And especially a Thursday night game where, and I was talking to a friend of the show, Bobby, about this morning, a Thursday night game where, you're coming off of an emotional division win at home against a raucous crowd. It was almost a night game. And you got a 38-year-old quarterback who has been streaky at best this season. Like, it shouldn't come as that big of a shock that team having to go to Minnesota in a hostile environment on a Thursday night might not show up. So, like, if you want to
variables involved in this sport,
yeah, if you want to be independently still pissed off about that game Sunday night, like, that's fine with me. And I mean, it's fine with me either way. Like, if you it just doesn't make sense to me to like contextualize it against this game. Like, every game is different, week to week league. Like, I'm gonna keep saying, and that's my stance on it. But I fell asleep at halftime, and this is happening to me way too much. I'm such a fucking old man, but I fell asleep at halftime, and I wake up, and we got the absolute joy of the Chase Claypool situation, which was great. And it's just like these Steelers, as soon as they think that they're turning the corner, and old Cowboy Bebop there is coming down out of the hills with his carbine repeater, firing out the cattle rustlers and saving the day. all of a sudden, things don't look so good for them. So
it's just, I just love this sport, man. I truly do. I love the damn oblong leather football game that is played. It is great. Chase Claypool, who I just described on either last show or the show before that as the classic football douchebag, does a classic football douchebag thing. And now it's like Ryan Clark's ran on him was just, oh my God, just music to my ears, listening to that and being able to kind of soak it all in. Like I said, I didn't watch this game. So all of the narratives that came out of it, like you said, it was just a gift wrapped hilarity on top of the Steelers being like, all right, Ben's leading us back. Ben's leading us back. Oh no, Chase Claypool is going to waste as much time as humanly possible. And with 40 seconds left in the game there, just wow, me not we, love it. The sport is great. God, this fucking sport is entertaining. Every single day, we just get gifted for 4 or 5. How long is this? 6 months at this point. Super Bowl's played in February, so it's unbelievable. We love you, football. Thank you, football. Thank you for last night. Thank you for this incredibly insane season. And I'm having a blast. I am having a blast.
And thank you to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, like, I've been saying this the past couple of weeks. I have the most amount of respect that I have for any organization in the league and any head coach in the league, but they're just really caught between generations right now. Like, you got these young little dickheads bouncing around making TikToks and celebrating first downs and talking about playing music. And then you got the John Waynes of the worlds and the Cam Haywards and even Mike Tomlin to, I think, a very big extent. They're just really like, there is a oil and water situation going on here with one half of this locker room and the other half. And it's going to come to a head. Sounds like it, maybe it's going to resolve naturally with Roethlisberger walking away at the end of the year. But it's been a lot of fun to watch. I mean, it's been really fun to watch since the losing never heard of her tweet. It's literally, you can trace that to the downfall of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
The football gods will smite you when you try to take advantage of them. When you think you've got this whole sport locked down and you can be cocky about it, the football gods will come smite you. And I guess we can sort of transition a little bit. We really only have one small news thing, but Mark in the comments here, why are the fourth quarter Steelers the greatest offense in football history? I thought the Ravens were better late, but the Steelers are on another level. I definitely think there are some parallels there, and I think that's going to tie into what the Ravens need to do, which is use tempo. Lamar Jackson, who is rare to ever fault anything that is not directly his own actions, kind of sneakily snuck a comment in. I don't know why I said that, but a comment in where he said, I think a reporter asked, what's better about tempo? You guys got it together on that last drive. What do you like? And Lamar just basically said he feels like it's a nice way of getting the offense to have some urgency and allow them to do their thing or something like that. And it just felt like the way he said it a little bit. Obviously, words tell lies, but I think that the pressure of the situation heightens the senses a little bit. Defenses aren't able to settle in. The Ravens get tempo used against them late in games. The Steelers, like I've said, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, always when you play the Ravens, go tempo. Don't let them dial up their blitzes and start disguising and having time to make all these shifts and communicate. And that's how you end up with blown coverages that the Ravens have. So I think that the Ravens defense needs to be a little bit better there as well. But I think that leading into this Browns game, we saw a Ravens offensive line and a quarterback that really kind of struggled to trust each other, or especially on Lamar's side, trusting that offensive line, just exact mirror of last year where the midway point when the struggles happen and that Tennessee Titans game in the regular season where, they do hit a couple big plays there, but ultimately Lamar is just late on everything, missing a lot of opportunities. There's open guys, there's missed reads, there's all these things. And so much of it has to do with trust. So the Ravens need to really incorporate tempo as well as 6, 7, and max protection in this game with the Browns. And I think those are the two ways that they can get Lamar out of this funk a little bit. Lamar himself said he's playing like a rookie. I would agree with that statement very much so. And so you need to treat him like a rookie a little bit. You need to dumb it down, make it easier on him, use a little bit of tempo so he can get in a rhythm because he likes it, and then give him max protection so that he doesn't feel so jittery because he is absolutely lost in the pocket. Derek Clausen, friend QB Class on Twitter, friend of the pod, has a really great article that he just wrote. I think he dropped it yesterday on Football Outsiders. You can find that on footballoutsiders.com and at QB Class on Twitter. And he's talking about how is Greg Roman's pass offense flawed? Yes, absolutely. Our receivers making mistakes, of course. But this is the worst that we've seen Lamar Jackson manage the pocket. the flight aspect of him wanting to leave the pocket, drop his eyes, protect the ball. Lamar even said himself in that same press conference I mentioned earlier that he's afraid of getting strip sacked. And if you play scared, you fucking lose. So all of those things need to be taken into consideration, and they need to treat Lamar like a rookie a little bit right now. And then that leads to more questions immediately. I'm sure, well, should they pay him? Should they? Take it easy. He's had a bad stretch. Sometimes you need to dumb things down, get your quarterback back in a rhythm.
Yeah, I think I tweeted when he made those comments. I tweeted something like kind of half jokingly, but also not. Got to talk to maybe take this beyond a physical sort of issue and maybe take it to the mental, psychological side of things. Tweeted out some knowledge from Dr. Bob Rotella, who has mostly worked with golfers, but he's kind of like a sports psychologist type of guy. He's worked in baseball and stuff like that, and worked with a lot of successful people. And basically, his theory as far as getting athletes to perform at their best is just getting them to tap into their subconscious and just kind of letting their body take over and letting their subconscious kind of guide them, as opposed to like thinking so much on every single thing, because once you think, you start to hesitate, and that's where you get screwed over. And it kind of like, that's sort of my 1,000-foot view of it all. It just seems like there's a lot of thought being put into every play call. There is a lot of thought being put into lining up before the play. There's a lot of thought, going into reading the defense and like, oh, no, let's actually do this. There's a lot of thought, and every single thing. It just seems like there's this excruciating kind of process that's being kind of put into it, painstakingly so, and not really for much reason. And especially when you have an offensive line that is really, really fucking bad, and it just seems like it's getting worse every week, that is not set to withstand against some of these pass rushes that you faced, i.e. with TJ Watt,
and Cam Hayward.
Yeah, exactly. Cam Hayward, and you got Myles Garrett coming up on the schedule again. Yeah, it just doesn't seem like this whole, like, let's think everything through and let's do 5-step drops, or they're probably not doing too many of those, but like a lot of long developing routes, and let's have, let's go 5 wide and not bring anybody to kind of chip in. And, it just seems like there's a way too much thought being put into this. And I guess that's probably part of that is the lack of a north-south running game, which probably does allow you to tap into your subconscious as a football player more so than if you don't have it. But it just seems like there needs to be a quicker fix, and there needs to be like, this is something I've been wondering for half a season at this point. If they come out starting slowly, and then it's like, oh, well, in the second half we adjusted, we just started going fast and stopped thinking so much and just started taking what was in front of us. It's like, well, why don't you just come out trying that? Like, why don't we try that this week? And I'm sure the answer is more complicated, and like, I of course am not smart enough to understand, but that's just sort of my basic
where you're at. That's where you're at.
Yeah, exactly. Just as much as I can distill my thoughts down to how I would criticize this offense, I'm usually the last person to like criticize offense, like schemes or anything like that. And for that reason, I've been probably kinder on this offense than other people when it's been struggling, both this year and last. But at this point, you're seeing a lot of the same issues week after week after week. And yes, they're still winning. So I don't want it to come across as like whiny or complaining or like you should be doing this or that or whatever. But it just feels like, let's maybe try to focus on it. Let's make one thing our focus for this week. Let's try to go fast, or let's try to get the ball to X amount of different players. Let's just, set short-term goals, try to follow them, try to think a little bit less. That would be my hope.
Certainly. And I think there was a comment, I believe Cole Jackson retweeted that same article, and a gentleman was in that thread and said the article blamed Roman yet criticized the routes by Watkins and Brown. How's that Roman's fault? Pass game was good early in the year, blah, blah, blah. And I think the specific level of those schematic things that you're saying you don't want to like touch on all the way. And I think you don't give yourself enough credit. You're more educated than 99% of people that follow this sport. And Derek Clausen actually replied to that. And I think there's 2 aspects there. Derek hit on one of them. The gentleman said the pass DVOA was 12th early in the year. Now Jackson doesn't trust the OL. Wide receivers are running terrible routes and blame Roman. It doesn't seem like a Roman problem. So the answer that Clausen had to that, and something that I've been screaming into the void, is that it's on Roman. This is his direct quote from Clausen. It's on Roman to have more defined rules within the offense. It's his structure. You can put a portion of the blame on the wide receiver coach if you want, which is something that I forgot to mention. But ultimately, if every player is playing that loose, it's a coach problem. Yes, Sammy Watkins is a professional. Like, he has played with Sean McVay's offense and an Andy Reid's offense. And, if you don't see those things happening then what is the variable there? What has changed? And it's coaching there. So the lack of rigid structure is the flaw in the pass game that is on the wide receiver end right now. And the culprits are generally Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown. Why is that? Because you usually want to give your most talented receivers and your receivers who know the offense the best, the most responsibility, capacity. You want to give them the most opportunity to be able to run options. You think, okay, this guy's in year 3, this guy's in year 4. They've been in this offense this whole time. I'm going to let these guys be able to read defenses and break on it. And guess what? They're not doing a good fucking job. So because they're not doing a good job, that falls on Roman's play calling, not on his offense, not on the schemes. It is the plays that his play sequencing. It is on him to use plays on his play sheet that have less options right now because the options aren't fucking working. There ends up being Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews 5-10 feet from each other. So it's not that I have a problem. And Roman's pass offense overall is not good. It's, it's not one of the best. It's very married to the run game. Like you said, Jake, the lack of a north-south run game that's able to make defenses be on their heels and be fearful of the run. And analytics hates that stuff and pretends like there's not too much noise to have to do with it. But then you hear Brandon Staley, Sean McVay, all these guys who are getting paid millions of dollars, successful football coaches, talk about how important it is, the physical part of the game. Mitchell Schwartz put it very eloquently as well. That aspect's missing. So all of these things are compounding. And it's basically a shit show at the fuck factory is what I want to say. It's just a 7-win whirlwind of issues. And a lot of it is injury. But guess what? Everybody gets injured. Roman needs to be calling his plays that have more structure in them. Also, Lamar misses 10 days during training camp. Rashad Bateman misses all of training camp. Sammy Watkins misses a lot of training camp. Hollywood misses all of training camp and whatever. Hollywood's been in the offense a couple years, whatever. But then early in the year, all these guys are back. You're practicing. Most of it's healthy. There's good practice patterns. Oh, this guy gets hurt. This guy gets hurt. This guy gets hurt. This guy gets hurt. Plus, it's getting later in the year. So practices, I'm going to make an ass out of you and me and assume are very, very light. A lot of mental reps, not a lot of, and it doesn't even have to do with hitting or anything like that. I think that this defense has been a lot more physical and done a good job, but they're not practicing to win right now. It feels like I'm could be completely a dumbass in saying this. So please feel free to put the freezing cold takes crown on me if that's not the case. I haven't been at practice, but they're practicing probably to stay healthy because they're barely fucking hanging on by a thread. They don't have the horses anymore. They don't have the depth anymore. They're literally on their last 2 threads in terms of depth. So all of these factors have resulted in a pretty shitty pass game right now. Lamar's worst stretch of his career, and there's a lot to it. And it's just always like trying to blame one guy, one person, one thing is always going to make you look like a fucking idiot because it's all of it. It's everyone. It's a team. It is a team at the essence of it. So everybody's got to be better. Roman needs to be better. Lamar needs to be better. Everything needs to be better, but they're limited. So it is what it is.
Yeah. And not only are they all a part of it, but they all play into each other's reasons for why things aren't going well. The offensive line plays into why Lamar is not playing well. Lamar's struggles to an extent play into why the receivers aren't playing well, which vice versa, they also affect Lamar, which is all affected by Roman's play calling. And I think ultimately, to your point there, I do think it all comes back to Roman because when everything is going really well and kind of humming, like we've seen at points this season, pretty recently from this offense, ambiguity in that regard can be looked at as something like creativity or something positive. When things aren't going well, when there's a lack of clarity, ambiguity is more obscurity. And we're seeing much more obscurity right now than we have probably at any point within the Greg Roman experience would be my estimation of it. It's looked pretty rudderless for the most part. So I think it does come back to Roman. I think we can have a civil conversation without calling for anyone's job or anything necessarily. I think your prediction is he'll be gone after the season. I would probably agree with that at this point. But ultimately, it does kind of come back to him, because if we're going to talk about the injuries, like, I totally get that. And I've been banging that drum since they were even 4-1. I said, look, this offensive line is a problem, and it's going to continue to be a problem. And that was before Patrick McCary was dealing with issues and whatnot. It's just really, really, really bad right now. So I think if you're Greg Roman, my words of encouragement would be to eliminate ambiguity, give guys one thing to focus on. Like Bill Belichick says, just do your job. He just distills things down to a simple kind of terminology. And I know everyone gets kind of sick of the whole Patriot way shit and whatnot, but it works because it simplifies things. It allows people to focus on one thing or two things that week. And if everyone executes, then it all hums like a machine. And when you're putting, guys like Alejandro Villanueva up against some of these top tier pass rushers, and then they're blitzing and complicating things, and there's not an extra protection, and the receivers are running all these different kind of option routes and stuff like that. It's like, well, let's get rid of the option routes. Let's bring in an extra guy to protect. Let's give Lamar something quick. Let's give him also a check down to throw to.
A lot more heavy personnel, I think, is something that needs to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, and like at times this season, they've shown an ability to overcome some of their deficiencies in pass blocking by doing that. So I think getting more back to the basics like that's going to be key. And I think ultimately, like, this is probably the week to mess around a little bit, because other than Steelers at home, this is going to be probably the easiest game remaining on the schedule here. So excited to see how they attack it. Unfortunately, I am a little resigned to some of these results. Like, it just does kind of feel like they're shitty right now, and they're going to be shitty until they're not. So we can postulate all we want about how it's going to be fixed. But first things first is putting a good, not even 4 quarters together, maybe just 3 quarters together, win a game and get yourself back into a good place mentally, because things are pretty toxic right now with this fan base and with the media to an extent.
I definitely agree. And like Mark Andrews said, we're 8-4. It hasn't been all bad in his press conference this week. And kind of elaborating on one of the points that you made, the Bill Belichick, have guys master a certain thing. Let's look at an example on the other side of the ball that I think has gone really well. I think a lot of Ravens fans would agree. Someone that they were very sour on, Patrick Queen, someone who's making a lot of mistakes. So what did the Ravens do? Simplified it, took him out on 3rd down, took him out in red zone defense. They allowed him to master base and base nickel defense, the 2-4-5 and the 3-4 defense, base fucking matching between the 20s. He got better. Then once he started to really have that down pat and have the confidence there again, now they're increasing his workload. He's doing a nice job. He's going to make more mistakes as he plays more. There's more room for error. There's more to perfect. Needs another offseason, whatever. But the point is, they need to do that with Rashad Bateman. They need to do that with Mark Andrews, with Hollywood Brown. They need to be, having scripted drives, I guess I want to say, in a way where, okay, let's stop. And this is one of my biggest gripes with Roman's offense over the years, the grand orchestration of influx and outflux of players during mid-drive. There are absolutely positives to that, trying to get defenses to match that quickly and make a mistake and call the wrong personnel, get a mismatch. Somebody's on the field, somebody's not, things of that nature. That's the bright side. That's the benefit. But right now, for the betterment of the team, it feels like, okay, we're going to use a 12 personnel package and we're going to use Ricard as a tight end, or we're going to use Tomlinson, or we're going to use one of these guys, and we're going to have Watkins and Brown and Andrews in there with this running back. We're going to let that go for 5, 6, 7 plays. Then we're going to have the other one that we worked on, which is 11 personnel with Bateman and Duvernay and Brown and Andrews and Freeman, and let that one go play out. So you need to get back to trying to give these guys a little bit of continuity and specifically having groupings for personnel that are comfortable together, that understand each other, because right now it's not working. Lamar's not working with it. So dumb it down, make it simple. Again, it's just tough because I'm sure Roman, is trying to mastercraft, and maybe that's how he's big braining himself. Like you said, Jake, and trying to have these big mass exodus play after play where everybody's coming and going and coming and going. And hopefully you catch the Browns in a bad personnel, like I said, and then that's where you take advantage. But it just goes into the difficulties of, long story short, why these guys get paid, why Greg Roman gets paid, why John Harbaugh gets paid, why defensive fucking Wink Martindale gets paid. All these guys are getting paid. They have so much information to take in and digest and then try and make the right decision. And it's not the right decision. It's the least wrong or best possible decision at that time, because there's always going to be a downside to every single thing that you do. And you have to try to pick the best one, basically best of the litter, of the runt puppies. It's like a litter. It's like an entire litter of runts, and you got to pick one.
Yeah, it is. And I think ultimately that is our message, is to find a way to simplify things, whether you're going through something that this offense to be simplified as in, versions past, or whether you're looking to something like the college game. I always think back to when Chip Kelly came to the Eagles, and like one of the things that he did that helped him to, it wasn't long-term success, but it got him off on the right track, was his offense just never huddling. Like, they just didn't huddle. They would get their athletes that they wanted on the field on offense, and they just wouldn't huddle. So the defense couldn't make substitutions either. So if it comes down to a little wrinkle like that, or something within the rules that you can take advantage of, find a way to do it, because like it's not going to happen talent wise at this point this year, unfortunately.
For sure. And it's also the injuries prevent you from going back. Like last year, they didn't have Stanley, but they had a lot of other guys. They had Orlando Brown still and some other horses where you're able to go back into that option run game. And in 2019, you've got Yonda and Stanley and Brown and freaking Gus Edwards and Mark Ingram when he had a little bit more juice still. And you're able to rely on that option run game to be that north-south. So there's just a lot that is bad luck, and there's a lot that feels like there's some, I don't want to say wrong decisions, but it hasn't worked out. The key has not been turned the way you wanted. You didn't get the best possible resource there. So much to take in, so much to go. But at this point, like you said, just kind of start this discussion, I do ultimately feel the Ravens will probably move on from Greg Roman. It's been 3 years. That's a long time in the NFL for one coordinator in one spot. There's not a ton that make it like 5-6 years. I think that's pretty rare. A lot of head coaches don't make it 4 years. So it's been a pretty tumultuous situation as of late, but there's a lot of football left. And, this Cleveland Browns team, it looks like it's going to be the easiest one of the remaining games, but guess what? They just had a fucking bye. They're coming off a bye. So you're getting them at their best now. And then let's say, they're supposed to play the Packers. Well, the Packers are supposed to get Jair Alexander back, maybe Bakhtiari, maybe, Zadarius Smith, some of those things. Or maybe they get none of those guys back and someone else goes down. So, and even tying back to our original part of the kickoff of the pod, we're talking Steelers and Vikings a bit there. And it's week-to-week league. Shit changes. There's so many variables, day to day, week to week. You're playing on a Sunday, you're playing on a Thursday, or you're playing indoors, you're playing outdoors, all of these different things. So that's the beauty of the sport. And I was listening to a lot of Part of My Take this week, and I have been a lot lately. They've been fantastic again. Obviously, big time award-winning listener there. Everybody knows that. And they have been banging on the drum of, hey, we got the Bills and the Patriots playing in this win game. That's the beauty of the sport. It's awesome in baseball that every field's different. So a lot of those things are what makes it beautiful, and at times makes it ugly. So right now it's ugly. And as a fan, as someone, as us, we can't do anything to implement change. We're watching on TV and going to the game. So our voice, some people feel like, oh, if we all come together and say, fire Greg Roman, that they'll fire him. Well, you've been doing that for 2 years and it hasn't worked. So try to enjoy the beauty of it. It's very difficult. You want them to win, but they're not going to win every game. They're not going to go 20-0. They're not going to win every Super Bowl. They might not win a Super Bowl for 50 years, or they might win next year or whatever. So just try to appreciate the beauty of the variables and all of the uncontrollables, because that is what makes football fun.
Yeah, it does. So try to be as much a football fan as you are a Ravens fan, and you'll have more fun watching it, I think. And where is Urban in all this coaching discussion? I think probably mechanics, right? Where it feels like Lamar's base is kind of narrowing again, some things like that. I liked what he's been doing with the different arm slotting this year, and even a little bit of the kind of pump fake hesitation. I feel like that's actually helped him more than some people tend to realize, just, creating that window by creating 1 second of hesitation within a defender or two. But mechanically, he needs to be better. That's probably where Urban comes into those issues. But to that point, Urban is probably the number one candidate to replace Roman whenever that's going to ultimately happen. If it's this offseason, if it's next year, whenever that might be, Urban is probably the guy right now, because the Ravens like to do in-house hires. But we'll see what happens. I mean, Joe Brady's still in the market. Oklahoma wound up hiring Brent Venables, so he's not going there, which probably is a good thing for him at such a young age. That will be a little bit of a crazy program to step into. And then, I don't know, other candidate-wise, hopefully.
Outside, it's hard to predict who's available.
Kyle Shanahan is such a pipe dream, and he would have one good year and then just get hired as a head coach again. So
the Niners are in the mix right now. I think they like Kyle Shanahan there.
Yeah, that's actually true. I was thinking that a couple weeks ago, but they've rattled off a few in a row. So I think that's probably not going to be happening, at least this year. But there's probably good candidates out there. You got to think. So
Certainly. I mean, I've always enjoyed Brennan Marion's offense. He hasn't even gotten really a shot to call plays, so that's probably a stretch. It's very unfortunate that he is not. But in-house Urban and the question coming from John K. Where's Urban and all this coaching discussion? I'm really curious. There's a dynamic here where, and you mentioned those arm slots Lamar was using, and we saw Lamar be really sturdy early in the year and was looking like an MVP, leading all these comebacks. He had the nice wide base. He's throwing over top. He's able to also mix in the arm slots and the different things and skip rocks at the lake and things of that nature. And he's broken down there a little bit. Lamar talked about how he basically had a new coach come in that has kind of been like very slowly eased in over the last couple of years. The gentleman's name is escaping me. I believe it was Jameson Hensley or Jeff Zrebeck's article, one of the two, and kind of talked about how Lamar is very big on trust, obviously. He's a little bit stubborn in terms of, and so is Flacco. Flacco, same thing, back-to-back quarterbacks. Flacco said, no one can throw a ball better than me. Like, I throw the best spiral. I have great mechanics. No one knows better than me. Fuck you guys. You can coach me up in the structure of the offense, but I know how to throw a football. And Lamar feels the same way a little bit. He does some unique things that he's very confident on. He doesn't want someone coming in and trying to change everything. Feels like he's a little stubborn and very confident. And so Urban has to be in the mix there, it feels like, because Lamar clearly really likes Urban. And Lamar is very big on trust. He doesn't want someone coming in and changing. He also doesn't like big volatile change. He very specifically picked Bobby Petrino at Louisville. He wanted to go there. He liked what Petrino's plan for him, wanted him to be a real drop back quarterback, and did a lot of great things there. So Lamar has a lot of power of it, but that's such a dual-edged sword, because at the same time, it's like how sometimes you got to stick someone to battle him a little bit, someone to push him that way. Like, there's just so much to go into deciding a coaching aspect of who, what's the right mix of pushing Lamar versus pushing him away and causing turmoil or things of that nature. So it's a very difficult situation. I'm curious about Urban. Doesn't have a lot of play calling experience. I don't know what his offense is necessarily. I assume it has a lot of Andy Reid influence, is my best guess, as a guy who worked under Reid for quite some time. And, he probably has all the elements of Roman's run game kind of mastered, I would think, about as well as anyone else. He's been with Roman for a couple years now. So very interesting aspect there, because this run game does have so many successful aspects. It is such a beautifully complex, diverse, awesome, efficient run game. And to fully get rid of that feels quite difficult. So Urban, we don't know what his offense would be. I mean, in a pipe dream of it would be Andy Reid mixed with Roman. And that sounds sexy as hell when you say it like that, but could be a little different from that. Who knows? I think that's something the Ravens would know a lot better than any of us do. We don't know Urban's offense at all. I'd love to hear him speak more to it and get some more opportunities. He's always very eloquent, has a lot of good things to say whenever he's up there at the press conferences. So Urban, definitely interesting. I do think the Ravens will probably move on from Greg Roman. And with that, I guess we can talk a little bit more about the Browns specifically, but it's a little tough just because they just played them. We already did all that preview.
Yeah, so we don't have to go too crazy in that. But I mean, you got some storylines, I guess, still here to track, but I think mainly my sort of overall sentiment going into it is it does kind of feel like it's a game where the Ravens have something to lose and the Browns have very little to lose, and that is not a good spot you want to be in, particularly when the team with nothing to lose is coming off a bye and at home.
I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like the Browns have to win this one, and the Ravens are still 8-4.
Dude, I just feel like the Browns are so checked out on the season already. Like maybe that's me not being fair to them, and they're professionals and they're still going to try to give it their all to make the playoffs. But that post game dap up between Lamar and Baker, that looked like one guy who, listen, I get that it's been a tough week here with Lamar, but that looked like one guy who had his eyes set on something bigger, and another guy who was like, I'm ready to pack it in, man. Like
I'm ready to go off, reset. Wait for next year.
Right. I'm playing hurt. I'm feuding with the media and the fans. Like, all this shit is just going, like, I'm just so tired of this experience. Like, and maybe, again, maybe that's not being fair. Baker Mayfield's obviously a professional and a great competitor. So I'm sure he'll have some fire. They'll have some fire in their bellies collectively. But it does kind of feel like the pressure, to me at least, it feels like the pressure is a little more on the Ravens, which is a tough spot to be in.
I feel like this could be the last hurrah of the season for the Browns, because Baker, they all probably were beaten, broken, and damned. Like you said, I think that was great little insight there. I agree with you there. I think Baker kind of did have that apoplectic kind of tone overall. He's all beat up, but they had the bye to reset and recharge. They have to come out fucking swinging, get the run game really going. They're going to be looking at how to do that against the Ravens defense, what fronts they're doing, how they can take advantage of the Ravens fronts, try and run the ball. I was an idiot last time. I was freezing cold take that I thought the Nick Chubb was going to run for 150 without Calais Campbell. I thought that, Brandon Williams did come back and has been, I will shout that from the mountaintop. Brandon Williams has been awesome the last 2 weeks. Holy shit. He has been punching dudes in the face in the run game.
Got a whole 2 weeks of good play out of him. Hell yeah.
Exactly. $13 million in 2 weeks. Freaking, he has been crushing though. Seriously. He put a WWE fucking forearm shiver on the Steelers center Kendrick Green in the red zone last week. I think he had 11 tackles last game, which for a nose tackle, tackles like that mean they're fucking dominating. For a linebacker, you can be the best linebacker or the worst linebacker and have 100 tackles. I think that's, kind of a superficial stat. But when your nose tackle's making all those tackles, it means they're probably making them at the line of scrimmage behind it or right past it. So he's been incredible, been flexing, and they got him right for this divisional run. So all of those things are interesting. Yeah, B. Will definitely got his legs back. Got my boy Dre here. Absolutely. So very interesting to see. I think that is going to be the battle, man. And I kind of feel like the Browns had that week off to reset the batteries, let the media chill out. Everybody's quiet on them. There's no narratives. They're not on ESPN. Not everyone's not talking about them and in their fucking heads. So they probably got a quiet week, can get back and be like, we have to win this game. This is our season. This is the playoffs. The playoffs are now for the Steelers. The playoffs are now for the Browns. And I really the Bengals too. And I feel like the Ravens can kind of afford to lose this one. But and again, you've got that excuse into your head that the NFL gave them a bye, and you already have that. So you have to do your best to try and ignore that, block that aspect of it out. So very interesting to see how this game pans out, considering the rare scenario of the Browns playing the Ravens twice in a row with a week off between, which is just, wow. How many times has that happened?
It's not many. And what you got to do if you're Harbaugh is you got to call Billick up and have him come in the locker room and start ranting his conspiracy theories about how the league's trying to screw us.
Yes.
Nobody thinks we matter. They're making they're giving them a bye week to play us again. This will be a good week for that.
Turn the cameras off. Turn the cameras off.
Fuck the Titans. We got to get Billick into the locker room at some point this year and fire these clowns up.
For sure. And I think Harbaugh and Tomlin, I would say, are two coaches that are great at that, us against the world and trying to get that whole thing down. I think Tomlin has a lot of similarities to Belichick and his kind of way to dumb things down, like you mentioned very beautifully earlier. So a lot to take in. Again, I guess, on the defensive side of the football, it's like the Ravens' run defense is pretty damn good. The Browns have an outstanding run game typically. The Ravens won the last round. The Browns have fucking Jarvis Landry and like I love Donovan Peoples-Jones. We were high on him in the draft process. He fell a bit. He's been very nice, but not a world beater necessarily. It looks like the Browns aren't going to have David Njoku, who's the explosive one out of their heavy personnel and is able to do some things vertically and throw those seams and fades and test defenses on play action down the sideline a lot. So it's kind of a strength on strength and a cripple on a cripple, where it's like going to be Jimmy Smith, Anthony Averett, and Chris Westry fighting against Landry and Donovan Peoples-Jones and Rashard Higgins. So it's like a very even, fair fight, I think is the best way to put it on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and maybe you're talking about a little bit of a cascade effect where, we've seen this happen, and like it's kind of I don't know how much credence you can put into it, but it kind of feels like in games immediately after where something like this happens, it does feel like with this Ravens team, with the way Harbaugh is able to get them up for games like this, it does feel like the guys that step up in their absence play pretty well, at least that particular week. I think back to Villanueva in week 2, who looked awful at right tackle in week 1, and then comes out that Stanley's not going to be able to go in week 2. He steps in and plays pretty admirably. I'm kind of looking for something to maybe happen in that regard with this defensive back group. And, there's not as much of a prerogative on the opposing offense to say, okay, we got to avoid Humphrey. We're going to go here, here, and here. And Wink is going to have some more options to work with. He's going to have ways to move his guys around differently, where obviously you would rather have Marlon Humphrey on the field than not, but maybe you can get a little more diverse there at cornerback. As far as like a schematic breakdown, this point by Stewart is well taken, and it's one that I was talking about on Twitter the other day. The Browns, it sounds like they're going to be without their punter, Jamie Gillen, who's a pretty good punter, and I think their long snapper too. Like that's not a big deal.
Long snapper's back?
Okay.
I'm not sure.
It's not a big deal until all of a sudden it really is a very big deal. So that keep an eye out. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Joe Buck, or excuse me, I think it was actually David Letterman. Yeah, it was David Letterman was on the Manning cast on the Patriots-Bills game, and Bill Belichick went for 2 on the first touchdown, the Damian Harris long touchdown run, and made it 8-0. And Dave Letterman was kind of talking essentially about the butterfly effect that could have, where it makes the Bills need to score a touchdown and could come back to bite the Patriots in the ass. And I think that butterfly effect that Stuart brings up here in the comments is very interesting because it turns the Browns into this have to go for it every fourth down, have to go for 2, and it could end up like that could make or break the game in itself. That is one small aspect, it appears, but it actually is a massive thing where it's like, all right, the Browns aren't punting. If that long snapper can't play, they're not kicking. So they're going to be going for every single fourth down, pretty much going, doing everything they can to score 2-point conversions. All of a sudden it's like 16-0. That could happen. They string together a couple drives and it's 16-0. And you're like, oh shit, here we go. Or the exact opposite where let's say the Ravens get out to a hot start and it's 14-0 and the Browns have to go for 2 and then it's 14-6 if they score, something like that, or they don't get a 2-point conversion and it continuously, stacks against the Browns and makes it so that they have to try to, score a touchdown instead of kick a field goal or something of that aspect. So very interesting there. Definitely something to watch. I'm sure that the CBS crew will probably dissect that thing a lot further than we do and probably bring it up like 37 times. So enjoy that. But yeah, another interesting comment here. John K. Garrett and Clowney, you're going to be juiced up. LJ needs to hit his check downs, keep those feet set. Yeah, you need to, and I don't want to talk about the 2-point conversion against the Steelers, but using the aggression of them against them, using some whams and some traps, some things of that nature. That was something that Roman did to Jadeveon Clowney when they played in Seattle. The Ravens played in Seattle. A lot of it was pulling, play action, power play action, where the guard would come kick out, things like that. But doing that against Garrett is I don't like to, because he can do that whole illusionist freaking vortex warping side movement stuff, his lateral skill, that clip from earlier in the year where he just kind of like teleported. So he is a bad person to do that against. If I recall correctly, in that Browns game, he did that on one of those exact plays. So doing that with Clowney, who maybe lacks some of the lateral ability, I think makes a lot of sense, as opposed to Garrett. And Garrett needs to just be taken out of this game. Like I said earlier, 7-man protection. The empty that I like for the Ravens is when they were lining up Latavius Murray and Mark Andrews in empty with 3 receivers. So 11 empty. Both Murray was lining up as kind of a wing H, and Andrews was on the line of scrimmage. Both of them cave in the edges as best as they can and then leak into the flats, and you run some wide, spaced out concepts where there's kind of an underneath like a 8-yard option from a slot receiver, like an 8-yard in or a dig or whatever you want to call it. And then there's like a post and then a fade on the other side or a hitch and a comeback. So that way, that's a rigid play structure like we discussed. It's taking the options out of it. It's aiding the protection. It's making Lamar more confident. And I think that's a recipe for success right now, especially considering your opponent, considering Tyree Phillips is awful in pass sets. I feel so bad for Tyree Phillips. I'm going on a little bit of a rant here, but I feel so bad for Tyree Phillips. Week 1, he is the starting left guard. He had an awesome training camp. He has the physically imposing ability to down block and collapse, cave in, some combos, work to the second level. When he's moving downhill, he's really quick. He does a good job kind of staying over his toes or I guess staying even and all those things. He's not working on his damn pass sets. They put him at guard. All training camp, he's mainly working at guard. So then, of course, what does he have to play? Right tackle. His pass sets are awful there. He has slow feet there. It's not his fault. Playing tackle is so athletically challenging. Playing against a guy like Clowney, who's usually lined up on that side, is so challenging. So I feel awful for him. It is a huge mismatch, and play calling needs to account for that, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. It's just like it's 100% a situation where you have to start scheming around what you've got, and what you've got is not good along the offensive line. So have to find a way to scheme around that. Have to find a way to maybe get a little bit more of an interior push in the run game. I think like it feels like it hasn't been there. And going back to that point about the north-south thing, it's just like when they don't have that, it just feels like they've lost their identity and they're just kind of like twisting in the wind a little bit. So I don't know if that means incorporating Latavius Murray a little bit more. It feels like at this point he's reduced to maybe an explosive play or two in a game and not much other than that otherwise.
Because Freeman's been rolling.
Yeah, Freeman's looked great. So obviously, like some of those touches go there. But it does feel like, and this goes back to some of the 2020 issues. It does feel like you're getting too many first down plays where it's like turn around and hand it off for a loss of 1, or you get sacked for a loss of 3 or 4 yards. It just feels like they're getting behind the count a little bit, like we were talking about last year on first down. Got to start turning some first down plays into positive plays and roll with that momentum, I think.
I fully agree. I think that Freeman's been cutting dudes up, and you gotta try to give them a chance to go. Battle the might of the Browns against yours. Get this offensive line fired up. See if you can't get them coming downhill a little bit. Get Bozeman and Zeitler and these guys trying to come downhill. Villanueva's done some nice things in the run game. He's just such a weird freaking player, but whatever. I don't have to talk about that. Getting this run game going, trying to work off of it, impose your will as best as you can. If the Browns craft up a really nice game plan, this game, maybe gets a little out of hand and can, if Roman doesn't do a good job adapting and doing some version of the things that we've discussed or something else to aid Lamar Jackson at this point, it could be quite difficult. So it's going to be a really interesting matchup. The Browns, I mean, it's really an inexcusable loss for the Browns. Coming off a bye, having 2 weeks there for a divisional opponent and being able to study them essentially for a month straight and use what you did in the first game against them and go counterintuitive in the run game, use some counters, misdirection, things like that, and figure out how you can try to take advantage of those Ravens fronts. So very interesting. Side note, Caesars Sportsbook is open, the official book at Horseshoe Casino now. We are getting closer, people. Still no fucking mobile apps, which is
that's going to be a while.
Another year, apparently. Another year. Unbelievable.
Your boy, you're not to out myself too much, but your boy does work relatively close to Maryland Live. So I'm not too mad about it.
There you go. Love that. And so that is good news in the right direction. But Mayor Brandon Scott, Baltimore's mayor, apparently just opened with the first bet of Caesar Sportsbook. And he bet on Lamar Jackson to win the MVP, the Ravens to win the Super Bowl, and for the Orioles to be 500. I love the vote of confidence there, Mayor Brandon Scott. That's hilarious.
Well, we had Hogan as well, who I think he was at the Maryland Live one, and he placed a Super Bowl bet to go to the Super Bowl on the Ravens and on the Washington, and he utilized the incorrect terminology.
So he used the R word. So he bet on Washington to go to the Super Bowl?
Yeah. He was hedging a little bit.
He is such a DC whatever. He is an advocate of DC secretly more.
I don't think it's too secret, if we're being honest. But yeah, I just thought that was funny. Like politics aside, just the fact that he
tried to do something nice and completely, made it a dumb situation by using the R word.
Listen, maybe some of his constituents might like that, so maybe he's playing to his base a little bit. But who could say?
That might be true.
Not to get political, but
exactly. So interesting there. A little bit of progress. I will say I'm going to give a shameless plug here of something that could help me, but if you're just chomping at the bit, you're, looking for something to gamble on. I have been loving Underdog Fantasy. Oh my God. Underdog Fantasy. I'll try and pull it up on the screen here a little bit.
Not an ad, by the way.
Not an ad at all. So what Underdog is for my fellow degenerates, you can do over under pick'ems. You can also do kind of DFS stuff. It's somewhat similar to DraftKings or FanDuel in that way, but you can do over unders. And for whatever reason, it's legal. So you can parlay up to 5 over unders on games. It is my favorite thing. I've almost stopped betting on games because I do 30 of these a week now. So for instance, I could do Devontae Freeman over 50 rush yards, Dak Prescott under 280 pass yards, Taylor Heineke over 246 passing yards, freaking Zach Wilson under 209 yards. So they do multipliers. So they go up to 20 times. If you do 5 of them, that's the max. You can put in $1 to win 20. I do have a promo code for you. They will match up to 100% of your first $100.
Wait, so this is
for myself, kind of. I mean, they didn't pay me to do this, but I can get money out of it, and you can also get your money matched. So use the code SPENNYP53. Again, that's SPENNYP53, and you'll be able to get a 100% match there, and I'll get $10 to gamble with. So if you love me and you love being a degenerate gambler and you're looking for a little fun pick'em over under parlay with some multipliers there, then go use Underdog Fantasy, and it's a lot of fun. Join me, tweet them at me, message me. Let's talk about it. I love it. I'm addicted to it currently.
Speaking of which, Ravens, are they 3.5 underdogs this week?
I think the line's been moving. Let me see what DraftKings has them at. It's been 2.5 and 3.5. So it means that it's pretty much a pick 'em at a neutral site. And the Ravens are 3-point underdogs on DraftKings currently. The over-under 42.5. So they think that the Browns are going to win this one like 23-20, basically.
All right, John, let's break out that court board, that bulletin board, and let's get going here.
Exactly. It is time to use the Brian Billick voodoo of they did this on purpose to make the base. I mean, they kind of probably did. They're like, how can we get this to be more of a rivalry? Let's give the Browns an upper hand and basically screw the Ravens, making them play a relatively competent divisional opponent twice in a row while wedging the fucking Steelers in between it and Ben Roethlisberger's last home game against the Ravens. So thanks a lot. Thanks, Roger. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, Roger, you disappoint me.
Such a good guy, Raj. Such a good guy.
He really is. That's to talk about a guy who's just dialed in, but he really screwed them over on this one.
Meanwhile, he probably has literally like zero to do with that. And it was just like what the scheduling people.
I don't think he has anything to do with anything, by the way. If you read that new Seth Wickersham book about the Patriots dynasty, it sounds like he literally just exists for when a problem comes up to just take the heat for the owners, which is a good spot to be in if you're making like upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars and getting PJ access like you're a fucking Roy.
Exactly. Oh, just don't even get me started on Succession right now. But Ingraven's up in here
down on it. People are down on it, but I'm really liking it this year.
Really. It's hilarious still. The dialogue is impeccable. That's the best part of the show.
Big cliffhanger recently too, so I'm really excited for this final week.
Certainly. Engraven, what up? Glad to have you in here, brother. Davin in here, or Devon, pardon me, with Spicy Boys. All this stuff, man. So the Ravens at this point, just try to enjoy the ride. We're on a roller coaster, brother. Like, all you can try to do is enjoy the comedy of it, enjoy John Wayne Roethlisberger and the Browns getting Ravens by Ravens and all the crazy shit that's been going on, having Tyree Phillips and Alejandro Villanueva as your starting tackles against Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett. Like, whew. So take the losses with a grain of salt and take the wins with a shot of Patron. That's all I know how to say at this point. So the Ravens are fighting out here, 8-4. Still hanging on there. It's a sole place of the AFC North for now. Maybe it'll be different after this, but I guess with that, let's do some predickies. Jakey boy, how do you see this one going?
I'm going to pick the Ravens. I was thinking all day that I'm going to pick the Browns, but I'm going to pick the Ravens to win 21-20.
We just had a very thorough kind of therapy session. It felt like some psychotherapy of everything that's been going on from both a meta and detail level, talking about kind of decisions at the micro level of personnel and groupings all the way through everything. So with that, I'm going to join you. I think that we see this Ravens team that every single person has kind of given up on. It feels, well, not every, but a lot of people have given up on despite being an 8-4 team. The Ravens are the salty dogs right now. That has played to their advantage. This is betting with heart a little bit more than head in this one. But I think we see some explosive, crazy plays in this one on both sides of the football for both teams. I think there's going to be some turnovers. I think there's going to be some long touchdowns. I think there's going to be some wildness going on. I think the Ravens are going to walk out of Cleveland, sweeping the Browns after I picked the Browns to sweep the Ravens in my preseason prediction. But let's go Ravens 27, Browns. Has to be a funny number because no punter, no long snapper maybe. So let's go 27-22. Ravens. The Browns have to try to go drive down and score a touchdown again on their final drive, and don't do it.
Again, that's juicy.
Yeah, I think we go back-to-back stuffy stuffs, and Wink Martindale is Baker's daddy.
Okay, well, we like that. So both predicting a Ravens win. I was going to pick the Browns, but I just, as soon as I brought up that video of Lamar and Baker dapping each other up at midfield, and Baker just looked like he was walking out of a MASH unit. He just had some stuff that he was working through. And I know he's had a bye week to potentially work through them, but that gives me some pause if I'm a Browns fan.
There could be there's a level of uncertainty and toxicity that is existing within the Browns that is spectacularly higher than what's going on with the Ravens right now.
100%. All right, so we both got a Ravens win then. Anything else as we approach the hour mark and wrap this thing up?
Shout out Zooboot, our actual paid ad of our boys. These wallets, we've talked about them. They're freaking sick. I love mine. Incredible for game day. Incredible to go to the bar with. Customize them. You can get the Baltimore Beatdown logo one that you can see here with our little logo, cartoonish raven, kind of like an Oriole Raven hybrid, I would say almost. And you can use that for any wallet. The promo code Podcast Beatdown. Again, Podcast Beatdown for 15% off of any Zooboot RFID aluminum wallet and money clip. It is outstanding. I have really enjoyed using it. I love not having to use anything on my phone. I hate having the possibility of losing everything altogether. This bad boy, I just clip the money clip into my jeans because I'm not a cash guy. But if you're a cash guy, my God, this thing is a vice grip for your cash as well. So keeps it all nice and tight. And Zooboot is an awesome company, a growing company. Support, some American-made wallets here, and go use that code Podcast Beatdown for 15% off of any wallet on their website, zooboot.com, code Podcast Beatdown. Thank you to Zooboot. We've enjoyed our wallets. We enjoyed the product. We've had quite a few orders come in from listeners. We love you guys doing that. That does get us paid, so we appreciate the hell out of that. If you want to support the boys and update your wallet game, go for it. We've been having a lot of fun with Zooboot. Shout out to our boy Mike Reed, who is doing an awesome job up there as well. Mike, we love you, and go Ravens.
100%. And before we get going, wanted to give a quick shout out. Demaryius Thomas passing away at 33. Very sad news. Seemed like a great player. He was involved in a lot of back and forth, battles between the Ravens and the Broncos. And he also caught the Tebow touchdown pass that knocked the Steelers out of the playoffs in 2011, which was awesome. But more than that, just seems like a really, really good guy. Had some tough things happen to him in his life, I think, and he managed to turn it all into a positive. But ultimately, I think he was having some issues with seizures or something, and that sort of is what led to him passing away way too young at the age of 33. So just wanted to shout him out real quick.
Definitely, our hearts go out to his family and loved ones and friends. All anyone ever said about him and has said about him and is that he was just genuinely the nicest, most positive guy, always treated reporters with respect, always, treated everyone with respect, and was a really compassionate, caring, giving, loving man. I believe he's a father as well. So really tragic there. And I hope that, those communities uplift that family. And I'm sure he'll be, he's a Super Bowl champion, part of that incredible run with Peyton Manning, and had a really big impact on that community as well, even more importantly. So definitely gives me goosebumps. Terrible to see him go, a legend of the game. And I hope that they can find solace in his passing and knowing that he was an outstanding man, and they get to enjoy the time that they did have with him. So rest in peace to Demaryius Thomas, ending on a very sad note here.
Yeah, definitely. But, we're lucky for being able to watch players like that. And I think luckier for having people like that come into your life in whatever way that they do. So just wanted to, it is a somber note, but wanted to close that out because it feels like you can't really tell the story of some of these crazy Ravens games and moments without Demaryius Thomas. And obviously the story of his life is a pretty incredible one too. So I think there's a Players Tribune article that he wrote a couple years ago going around, which I read a little bit of that this morning. It was really good. So check out some of the writing on him if you can. And just wanted to quickly shout him out and celebrate his life before we got going. But with that, I guess we do get going here on a Friday afternoon. Thank you guys for tuning into the live show. Thank you all for your patience that listen on the RSS feeds. We'll be posting this ASAP. So you're probably maybe listening to this Friday afternoon, Saturday morning, whatever it is. Appreciate you all very much. Hope you guys are in a little bit better of a headspace. I don't know if last night's game helped in that regard. I think it maybe made people a little bit happy in some ways, a little angrier in some ways with the Steelers Vikings. But like we've been preaching, man, just try to enjoy the ride. So let's see if we can do that on this coming Sunday. In the meantime, follow us on social media. You can follow the show at Podcast Beatdown. I am at Jake Luke. That's LOUQUE. Spencer is at Ravens 4 Dummies. That's the number 4 in the middle there. And until then, we will talk to you guys.
Every day above ground is a good day, as my boy Dre says here. And I'm pumped up for this game. Let's have fun. This is prime football. It's freaking December, baby. Ravens are 8-4, playing in Cleveland. Let's go. On that note, see ya.
It's the playoff season. Arrivederci.